If you're looking to flat tow your Jeep Grand Cherokee L down the road, you're going to want to pick up diode wiring, and there's a bunch of different configurations you can get. Really depends on what you need for your setup. So today we have it with our 4-pole end, which works just fine. It comes with a patch cable if that's what you're going to be doing, but it's going to give you the diodes to be able to get your light functions to work properly and mimic the light signals from your RV. You can also get it with an umbilical as well as a 6-way. So it really opens up the options to make sure you get the full package to flat tow your vehicle down the road. My name's Brad, and today I'm going to take a look and show you how to install the Roadmaster diode wiring on your 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee L. Now when it comes to installing it, that's probably why you're on this page. I'm here to tell you it's really not that difficult to do. You don't have to be an electrical expert. I'm going to give you all the color wires to be able to tap into it. Truly the hardest part is going to be just being underneath the vehicle to run that wire to the back. So I get that, maybe you don't really want to tackle this yourself. And this is something you're going to want to do with the rest of your flat tow components at once. So if any of that scares you off from, doing all the install yourself, I totally get that, but don't let it hinder you from flat towing your Jeep down the road. So if you're in that predicament, you can reach out to one of the dealers close to you by using our dealer locator, and you're going to find shops that are able to get your Jeep flat tow ready, and that way you don't have to worry about it. You can be picking it up and on the road in no time. But for you DIYers, stick around. I'm going to show you how to get this diode wiring installed, and you'll have it working in no time. To get your diode wiring installed, it's really going to be a lot easier if your fascia is taken off. That way you can get a nice clean run of all your wires, and depending on your braking system will determine whether or not you need to run it up into the engine bay. Some braking systems will tie into that diode wiring. It's a lot easier to do in the engine bay than underneath the vehicle or in a tight spot. So today we're actually installing the Demco Stay and Play Duo, which is a system that ties into that. So I did run mine into the engine bay. Something else that I'll point out is our red wire that we have here is going to be for a charge line, and this is something I would highly recommend picking up. It's a nice easy way to trickle charge your battery as you go down the road. It's just going to take 12-volt power from the RV, run it through the umbilical, and attach to your 6-pole and eventually the battery. That way it'll continuously charge that battery as you're going down the road. No need to worry about having to jump start the vehicle when you get there. Now, to begin, grab your wires, and I cut the 4-pole end off of ours and just taped it on to where our 6-pole bracket's going to mount up. I left myself a little bit of excess here, that way we can easily put that onto the plug later on. Now, if your kit didn't come with a 4-pole end, not to worry, it's going to be identical really the rest of the way here, so you can just continue or start routing just like we did. If you have the 4-pole, go ahead, you can cut that off because we're going to be tying into that 6-pole. From here, I just routed this up into the engine bay, so I'll come back later and zip tie up to our base plate, but there's a nice pocket in between the grille and the headlight, and that way I could run this wire up. You can see I left a nice loop here because eventually the G-force controller from our stay and play will need to tie into here, so this will leave us a nice pocket to be able to do that easily. Now, in the engine bay, to route this down it is a little bit tricky because you have the steering shaft as well as an exhaust manifold that's right there. So the main goal is to make sure it's not going to get bound up in the steering, but also not melted by the exhaust. So as I routed it, there's a hard line that I went up, and then as I fed it down, we'll be able to see it a little bit better underneath. I really just tried to stay away from the exhaust, and I'll show you how I did that. And before you feed the wires too far, something that you need to do is ground the 6-pole plug, and that's going to be our white wire off of the 4 wires. And so I peeled back a ton of white wire, cut it, and then I ran it to a factory ground that's located here. There's a ton of factory grounds on this vehicle. I would recommend, if you're going to be doing a braking system or anything that needs a ground, try to use this same factory ground. That way you have one consistent spot to check. And that way you can eliminate the ground at least on all of those. So peel that wire back and then just strip that, put a ring terminal, and then you can tighten that down onto your ground. Now the rest of that white wire is going to come in handy because we're going to need that to jump between the taillight signals from driver to passenger side. So we are going to be using that wire. Just hold on to that for now. I'll raise this up and I'll show you the path that I took back to our taillights. Now looking up into the engine bay from below, you'll see that it does get really tight here. That exhaust manifold's right here, and this is where we need to run that wire down. What I ended up doing is if you look above that, there's a heat shield. I tuck my wires in here, and you might want to use a pull wire to get it fed through, but eventually running it behind this heat shield means that I can get it routed down here to our underbody panel. And from here, it's a nice, easy run, because if you just take some of these 10 millimeters or even a pull wire, you can just loosely put the wires all under here and it'll be protected. Once you get out, I just kind of went along our fuel tank, went up over the filler neck. So from here, I routed up over our rear cross member, and the main goal was to get it, again, up out of the way of anything moving. And so I just continued it all the way back, close to our spare tire, and this is where it ends up. Now, we still have a muffler here, and we need to get to the taillight pocket. So to keep it to where it's not going to get damaged, I ended up actually feeding it through the hole in this frame rail, because at the end of your rail, it's wide open. So that allows you to get all 3 wires ran back safely and be able to get up to that taillight pocket without, any damage occurring. Now, with these wires, we are going to need to split it, because our yellow and brown are going to go to the driver's side, our green is going to go to the passenger side, and I'm going to need to run that over to the passenger side taillight pocket. I'm going to use the rear hitch area. You may want to lower your spare tire, or you can pop off that rear panel to get that ran. But at the same time, that white wire that we salvaged from that ground also needs to run over. You'll have plenty of extra length on each side, but we'll be pulling this up as well. So once you split that green wire and start running it over the passenger, just grab that white wire and run it at the same time. And that's what we'll do here. Once we have those wires ran, we're gonna head up, get our taillights taken out, and start getting our diodes put in place. And once you have your wires split to each taillight pocket, we'll remove the taillight, and there's a plastic cover that's right here with a plastic push pin. So if you use a flathead or a trim panel tool and just wedge this behind it, you should be able to pop this out fairly easily. And there's a few little clips along here, but if you just kind of pull this out, it should pop off pretty simply. There are some down here, but they're not too hard to pop out. And then you're going to grab a T30 Torx bit to remove this screw. Now from here, we'll get the taillight removed. A lot of times I try to just loosen it up a little bit. There's going to be some alignment pins that hold this in place, and we want to make sure not to damage the taillight. So just kind of back and forth, kind of work it, and it's going to kind of lightly pop itself out. So looking at the way that the pins are set up, you can see that you're going to want to push this to almost a 45, but really towards the outside and a little bit back. From here, we're going to want to separate the taillight by unplugging our plug. And so the red portion's a locking tab. If you pull that back, fingernail should do it. Sometimes a flathead screwdriver is a little bit easier. Push on the tab, get that separated. At this point, what we're going to want to do, we need to gain access to these wires. And our diodes are going to splice in here, but that we want to make sure that there's going to be a home for them to live. They do take up a little bit of space, and it can get tight. So what I'm going to do is pop off this plastic push pin that's holding our wire in. You may have to kind of pry on this a little bit. That's going to give us that space to be able to kind of move this. But this electrical tape, we do need to peel this off. So sometimes you can catch the start of it and unravel it. Sometimes you're not as lucky. If that's the case, like us, you can grab a razor blade or a knife and just very carefully cut a slit. Make sure you don't damage your wires in the process. And then just peel this back. And I'm going to go pretty well all the way back to our plastic plug here. That way we have plenty of real estate to get our wires or our diodes attached. So we can get both sides at a point where we have all the wires peeled back, taillights out, and then we can start pulling up our new wires and get them attached. Now to get the wires pulled up, you're going to want a fish wire of some sort. So if you have a stick or a coat hanger or anything to be able to push this down, because this will allow us to get to that taillight pocket, tape up those wires, and pull them up. So it is a tight fit. I think in this portion right here, it's the most open. So I'll pass this down. And as we pull our wires up, we do want to make sure it's not wrapped around the exhaust. It does happen, but make sure it's a clean path. And that way we're not going to have any damaged wires after the installation. So it is still pretty tight down there to get this all pulled through, but I was able to get it attached. I taped it up to my pull wire, and now we have plenty of excess here. So leave yourself about a foot, and then we can cut these wires and start stripping them. You're going to want to split your yellow and brown, because we are going to be attaching the brown wire and the white wire together, because this will pull that running light signal from one side and then go to the other. So what we'll do is strip back these a little bit extra just so we can twist them around. And on your diodes, you'll have your spade terminals attached to them. Pull off the yellow one. There should only be one. This is larger diameter, and it's meant for these wires to go together. So we'll twist these up. And any connection that you make with a spade connector, butt connector, whatever it may be, I always try to make sure that I give it a quick tug to make sure that it's secured, well. You don't want to have to go back and try to troubleshoot a loose wire. So here, ours is nice and secure. On our yellow, we'll strip this back, and we're going to put a blue spade terminal. Now that covers the diode wiring that we ran, but we need to tap that into our factory wires. And this is where a lot of people get a little bit scared because you're cutting factory wires, but I'm assuring you here that this is a pretty easy one, and really these are super reliable. The first thing that we're going to be attacking is our yellow wire, and I am going to cut this back pretty far to give us a chance to maybe tuck those diodes back. And then the other wire that we're going to grab is going to be directly below the yellow. So on this far side, you'll have a white with gray. So the tricky part is there's two white with grays. So make sure you're getting the one that's right underneath the yellow. So I'll trace this back, and then we can cut these wires. Now we can strip back all four ends, and being that they're very thin wires, strip them back a little bit, I would say maybe a ½ inch, maybe even a little more, so we can twist them up and then fold them on each other. It's going to give it a little bit more body to bite onto with those spade terminals. So just twist it up good, bend it end over end, and that should really help it, again, hold into those spades. Now all of these are going to receive the blue spade connector, so once you strip back the ends and curl them over like that, you can just put your blue spade on there and crimp them down. With all the spade connections made, now we can put our diodes in place, and you'll see on one end it says out. That needs to go towards the plug. So we'll grab both the diodes and put our white with gray on one and our yellow on the other. And then we'll just take the other side of that wire and connect it to the same diode. It doesn't matter which male end you put it on, just make sure it's on the proper diode. And then the new wires that we pulled up, we have our yellow wire is our stop and turn, and this makes it super easy because that's going to be our yellow wire here. And then our brown and white will go onto the white with gray. And that really is going to be it for this side, and we're going to repeat on the other side. But something that I like to do is there's a double-sided adhesive on the bottom. Stick these together, and I like to wrap the whole thing with electrical tape. You can also put some RTV silicone along this the red epoxied ends, and that's going to just create a nice watertight seal. For the most part on a vehicle like this, I don't really foresee a whole lot of moisture getting in there, but putting electrical tape, I really like that. It creates a wire strain, so that way these aren't going to be able to pull off. And the RTV will also accomplish that. So whatever you want to do for longevity of your wires, by all means, you can do that. So I'll get this wrapped up, and then we'll hop over to the other side and we'll get that one attached. On the passenger side, this is actually still pretty easy because it'll be the green wire. We'll go to the green, and then our white jumper wire is going to go to the white with orange that's, again, directly below the green. Now, be careful here because if you look at the other one, this is it's a tan color, but side by side, they look pretty close. So just make sure that you're going to the one directly below the green, which is white with orange, not white with tan. So we'll get this all taped up, and then we will head to the front And a lot of times what I'll wait to do is put the plug on after the fascia's on. A lot of times that's going to allow you to get a nice clean look. So we'll be coming back a little bit later once we have the rest of our components in place, and I'll show you exactly how to get that all wired up. Now originally my thought was to get our fascia put back on and then do our diode wiring, but looking at the grill, it does really look like it's going to be a lot easier to get this mounted up. The prongs just don't stick out far enough to get everything mounted up and nice and clean with that fascia in the way. So I am going to do it this way. We are going to probably have to trim out a little bit of excess, but at the end of the day, all of our components will be nice and accessible. So on our plug side here, we're going to grab our 6-way plug and pull the boot off and slide this over your wires and just kind of hold it back there for now. Now with this kit, it doesn't come with the 6-way. Sometimes when you pick up a tow bar, they'll have those included. Roadmaster Nighthawk is one that comes to mind. You can get this separately, or you can even get a diode kit that has this included. So this is something that's going to be crucial for all of your light signals, as well as for this braking system to work. So if you need to pick one of these up, we have plenty of options here at eTrailer. Now go to each of your wires and we're going to strip back about 3/8 of an inch, give or take. And that's going to be enough to drop that into the receptacles on our 6-pole. So we'll get these all stripped first. And if you want, you can make your red charge line. If you have a charge line, you can make that a little bit shorter, but for the most part, just leave yourself a little bit of extra slack here. That way it can look all tidy once we're done. And to get this into the plug is actually pretty easy. There's going to be molded letters in the plug or on the plug that will denote exactly where we need to go. So let's get this last one stripped and I'll show you that. So the molded letters at the 12 o'clock position of the plug, you'll see TM, GD, LT, RT, and then S, and then the center post is for our 12-volt power. So all of these will go to the corresponding spots. And I'll get these hooked into place and show you where they go. But to get them into the receptacle, it's just going to be a small flat or Phillips head screwdriver. You can back that out. Don't take it out all the way. These are super small, and when you drop them, they are super hard to find and also get back into the plug. You'll then just slide the wire in. If you want to, you can put a twist to kind of make sure any of the strays stay into that receptacle. And then we'll snug this down. You don't need to get too crazy. In fact, if you go too tight, you can actually cause those strands of wires to break. So just snug. And from here, I'll put them in the corresponding spots, and then I'll show you exactly how it looks. So as we go through our wires, again, 12 o'clock position, TM is tail marker, which is our brown wire. GD is ground, so that's our white. LT is left turn signal, so that is our yellow. RT is our right turn signal, and that's going to be our green. The S, we generally don't use those. Sometimes if you have certain light functions for indication of braking, you can tap those into them with patch cable, but for the most part, we generally don't use that. And then again, you just have your charge line will go into that center post. So what I like to do, this is living on the front of your vehicle. So anything you're driving through, this plug is going to see it. And, you know, we'll seal this up, but really trying to make sure that it stays protected long term is going to be huge to make sure that, you know, you don't have to go back, change the plug out. So I put a little RTV silicone. I say a little, but I really want to goop this all up to really make it to where moisture can't get into those receptacles and break down those connections. So once we get that gooped, we can then slide the boot over, and we're going to continue with a little protection here. We're going to grab some electrical tape, and we're going to tape around here. But also you can backfill this if you want to just really fill up that plug if you really want to. And then also a little bit of wire loom is going to clean this up and make it look nice. So you can just tuck that into the boot once you get it wrapped around the wires, and then we'll just get some electrical tape wrapped around it. So with this all taped up, we got it nice and sealed. We're going to put it on our bracket, and this will go to these posts. There's self-tapping screws that are included, and you just run those in. So we'll get this in place. And then the final thing we need to do is test to make sure that they're working properly before getting our fascia on. You can test it after the fact, but you're going to want to hook your RV with the umbilical up to our 6-way and run through the light signals on the RV, checking the taillights on the vehicle to make sure that everything's corresponding. Now we're going to be testing ours with a RV test box, which is just a powered 7-way with a switch to all the different light functions. So this is going to simulate hooking up to our RV. So we'll start off with our running lights. We'll go to our left turn signal, our right turn signal, and then finally our brakes. Once you've tested and made sure that all of your light functions are working properly, you've officially installed your diode wiring on your Jeep. So at this point, we're going to get our fascia in place, make sure that we have all the rest of the flat toe components working properly, and then from there, get your vehicle in flat toe mode, get that umbilical hook backed up, and then you're going to have your light functions working on your flat toed vehicle out on the road. And that was a look at installation of the Roadmaster diode wiring on a 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee L. Hopefully this video helped you get your diodes working on your Jeep and flat towing down the road. My name's Brad. Thanks for watching.